In this video segment, I will discuss what I did to finish the A deck and begin work on the boat deck. This is part 13 of my Trumpeter 1 to 200 scale Titanic build series. I ended part 11 showing how the A deck lights lit up, but the boat deck and A deck were not yet glued to the superstructure. But the superstructure was glued to the hull. So my next step was finishing steps 8, 11, and 12 of the Trumpeter instruction booklet in that order. Now for the stairs in step 11, I used the Pontos replacement parts. As one can see in the picture, the Pontos stairs have better railing details. And also I found that it was simpler to paint the stairs before cutting them from the brass tree. Now next it was time to apply the Pontos wood flooring to the boat deck and its deck houses. To apply the Pontos wood to the boat deck, I needed to cut off the supports molded into the boat deck that the lifeboats sit on. Now this procedure is not described in the Pontos instructions, but when one test fits the Pontos wood pieces for the boat deck, this becomes apparent that it needs to be done. Plus, on page 26 of the Pontos instructions, they show replacement parts for these lifeboat supports. Another item needing to be cut off the boat deck is the mystery box next to the aft second class entrance deck house. This box is discussed in an article entitled Titanic's Boat Deck Mystery Box on the website titanic-cad-plans.com. Now the Pontos kit does have a replacement for this, and it is found on page 19 of the Pontos instruction booklet. Now after the wood was applied to the boat deck, it was time to glue the boat deck to the superstructure. But when I attempted to test fit the boat deck to the superstructure, the aft 6 support posts, which are part number H43, which is shown in step 13, did not line up with the holes in the A deck floor. I don't know if this was an error of some kind on my part or another Trumpeter kit error. Now the picture shows how crooked one post sits when it is positioned correctly in the boat deck and the A deck holes. So to fix this, I just shortened all 6 of the support posts so that they would sit just on top of the Pontos wood flooring of A deck. The final length of the H43 posts came to be at 0.5115 inches. Now I did not glue the post ends sitting on the A deck floor to the A deck floor. Of course, since the posts were not sitting into the holes molded into the A deck floor, I now had holes in the floor. So to hide these holes, I filled them in with leftover wood plugs that matched their size. To make the wood plugs match the flooring better, I made some paint that was close to the color of the wood floor and then just blended the area around where the wood plugs sat so they would not stand out so much. So now the boat deck was glued to the superstructure, completing step 13 and finishing step 16 since the superstructure was already glued to the hull. Alright, so now the boat deck is in place. It's glued onto the superstructure. I have all the wood on the boat deck glued there. Next, it was time to work on the forward grand staircase that sits at the boat deck level. Now if you remember, in part 9 of my video series, I discussed how this staircase is missing. There's no provision for it. It's not molded into the kit for the boat deck. There's no hole here. This is all one solid piece. So I described how I cut this out. I took the staircase that was on the C deck in the rear that you can't see, and now it was time to install that part here onto the boat deck where there's normally a grand staircase that goes down into the ship. And as you can see, it didn't turn out too bad. Now I am hoping that when I put the deck house all over top of it and then the dome over top that, and with it being lit underneath, that I'll be able to see that. I'm not sure if I'll be able to yet, but if I can, at least you'll be I'll be able to see the grand staircase there at the boat deck level, which normally you should be able to see. But that completed this step, an idea that I had for the grand staircase. Now my next step was to complete step 14 of the Trumpeter instruction booklet, and then I moved on to step 15, but I had a difficult part in step 15, and that is the roof of the aft grand stairway, which is this item here, and this is part F2. This is a clear part, and this thing was a challenge for me to paint. Now I tried hand painting it, but it really turned out bad. So what I ended up doing was the areas where you see the glass, I drilled those out with a drill, and every one of them. And you can see in the pictures, I first drilled a round hole, then I painted the part. And the reason I painted it was because it was easier to see where the edges of the glass would end and the frame of this structure would begin. So then once I had it all painted, then I started squaring up the round holes I had drilled so that the shape of the hole would match where the exact window would be. And once I got all the holes squared off, then I filled these spaces with crystal clear glue to make the glass effect. Now you can see in the picture, the glass looks a little, thick. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it that way or not. But on the model from a distance, it doesn't look too bad. And then, you take a close-up look of it here, and it's not too bad. I might just leave it as is. But that's how I kind of worked on this part. But anybody has any better ideas, let me know in the comments, and I can try it for the forward grand staircase section. But after that, then I just basically finished part 15, and that's where I got as far as starting up the boat deck section. So the next thing I'm going to start working on is going to be the aft well deck and the poop deck. So that's going to move me to step 2. So that's what I will be discussing in the next video. So stay tuned.